Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. Better late than never, I always say. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And he is, of course, cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols. What's up, yo, Tennessee Hober?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, buddy, we are inching ever closer
Yeah.
to the start of the college football season. I know the 100-day countdown blew past us, but not the 100 days to SEC, so you got more breathing room.
Yeah.
How you doing over there?
Not too much, Mike, because tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow is the day. We are 100 days away from SEC football action. I'm excited, brother. I'm pumped up. Obviously, I'm not looking forward to the walk, but I do feel better after it. And like I said, it's the cool part for me is going through all the videos, because anybody that's seen the Cousin Shane countdown, it usually includes some awesome highlights. And for me, that's some of the best parts, because now we got two more teams to look through, so it's going to be some new highlights that maybe I've not seen in years past. But I'm pumped up because before you know it, college football will be here.
Right, and we got a battle in the comments, Shane.
Yeah.
Most underrated team. I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk. I got a couple, and you feel free to throw in any others. Well, after I get through with my list, maybe that are kind of top in your list. I got one in particular though that I think is going to be the most underrated team in the SEC. Breakout quarterback. I'm ready to pick a breakout quarterback that's going to stun you, Shane. And then something that's been on the back burner. I didn't know when I wanted to use this, but I think I have got the perfect, most underrated hire made in the SEC that literally no one's talking about, that I think will pay huge dividends for the upcoming season. How's that all sound?
That sounds awesome, man. Absolutely. And I did no work for this show, as usual. So it's almost like I am a cousin listening here. So,
and if I may, Shane, real quick, because I know people are here for SEC football, but sometimes you have little rants or messages to the audience. I have got a message, too, for one true fit in Donaldson. And it's not just Donaldson. It's all across. This is a corporation, Shane, called True Fit Gyms. I'm trying to get into shape, right?
Yeah.
So all this kind of advertisement. Come on in, $5 down, try out the True Fit. I went. It's like $30 a month, right?
Right.
But for $5, you could test it out. I was like, what could go wrong? So I go down there, and it's awful. It's worse than the gym that I'm paying $10 for. I thought it'd be at least twice as nice for over 2 times the price, right? So
yeah.
I just told them casually, hey, this is not for me. I got another gym. They said, no problem. Good luck. Call this number. We don't cancel you here. So I called the number. Took about 30 minutes. And I knew they were going to get me like this, Shane. They said, you have to cancel before 30 days or 30 days notice. But then you owe us your first monthly fee. So I was like, all right, I figured that. So I'm down for the $30 already on top of the $5 I've already paid. But this is how they really get you, Shane. They said, you want to cancel today? You've had this membership for a week. You got to pay the annual fee for $95. So I'm in almost $150 for 2 days at this damn True Fit gym. Do not sign up for the $5 True Fit. It's a scam. I just wanted that out there. Not a sponsor. Never will be a damn sponsor of this show.
Oh, Mike, I knew you were in a bad mood. I just knew it. I can always tell when we start a show. I was like, damn, somebody's pissed Mike off, But I hate that. And it's kind of funny that this podcast, we talk more about canceling gym memberships than we do football at times. So just add another one, Mike. I'll tell you a fun little fact here, a little rant myself. So I go to Lowe's today, and I bumped into one of our cousins there. He was running around, and he asked me an interesting question, one that comes up every so often about the Morristown Honda dealership, and what does that mean? Again, not a sponsor of the show, but growing up, me and Mike, there was a Morristown Honda car dealership right down the street from us, and every Saturday, or at least the week leading up to Saturday, they would have a sign up and a score prediction for the upcoming game. And, and if it was Appalachian State versus Tennessee, it'd be like Tennessee 55, App State 7, something like that. But if you're going against Alabama and you knew you were probably going to get steamrolled, it would be Alabama 6, Tennessee 7. So you can always kind of tell when you were expecting a big game or a little game. So that's where the Morristown Honda dealership came from. So, but more on the rant here. I'm going down these aisles, and I got this idea. I said, I want this fire pit, Mike. You got a fire pit. You've been sending pictures, and I'm like, that looks fun. I'll sit out there in the evenings. We'll put some logs on the fire and yada yada yada. So I go and I find the one that I want, and my wife's with me. She says, "Well, I'll go get somebody. We'll go get the one. Try to find this in the store, So she goes out and she comes back, and this guy, nice guy. All right, I'm sure he's a cool cat, whatever. I don't know much about him. But as they roll up, they're talking about fires, and they act like I'm 4 years old and I don't know how to start a fire, run a fire. And, I was just like, oh my gosh, honey, I don't need instructions on how to do a fire pit. We've been burning shit since I was 2 years old. I will figure this out, But anyway, I've never felt less of a man than listening to this Lowe's employee tell me how to do a fire pit. So, yeah, you know what? We're both fired up a little bit today, Mike.
Well, best of luck in your future fire endeavors, Shane. Speaking of fire, who's going to light the world on fire?
Nice.
Most underrated. I'm going right into it, Shane. Number one. And again, this is not necessarily in any order. I'm saving the team on my list at the end, though, that I think is the most underrated. But basically, these are the candidates. I'll go with Arkansas, brother. Arkansas Razorbacks. I think they're not to be dismissed. Yes, last year was pretty much awful, for most of it. But we have got a new offensive play caller. We got us a star quarterback. I love what I saw from Jaquindon Jackson, the running back, the transfer from Utah. They've added offensive linemen that are going to add to our woes there. We're getting Luke Hawes back, who I thought was outstanding as a true freshman tight end. I think our offense is going to be just fine. And again, the defense is not something that many people picked up on, how improved the Arkansas defense was. Now, overall, they were not outstanding, but I think it was because the offense was giving them virtually nothing as the season wore on, and I think they just frankly ran out of gas. But we're year two, Travis Williams, defensive coordinator. He's been in the SEC. He had success at Central Florida. Now, in the SEC, I was wildly impressed with what he did year one. If they can take a similar step this year, Arkansas defense is going to be probably not elite by any means, but middle of the road with a Bobby Petrino offense. If we can get it clicking, I think we got us one hell of a dangerous team. And the over-under is just laughably bad, Shane, at 5. Now, I get it because you're going to be an underdog in a lot of these games. But all you got to do is basically steal one at home against Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas. And I guess you could throw in A&M too, because I would assume A&M's going to be favored in that football game. And really all you got to do is beat Oklahoma State. If you could do Oklahoma State and one of these others, I think the over is a lock for Arkansas. What's your thoughts on my selection here as Arkansas as a underrated team in the SEC?
That's a hell of a start there, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Because the problem with me, and most folks know already, is I can be tricked. All right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you want to get back to gym memberships? I've been there. I'm that guy. I'm the one that, I'm watching that video at 2 a.m. like, if you do three hours of this, you'll look like Michael Bratton, and I'm like, hey, yeah, maybe that's what I'll sign up for. So I do the same thing with these football teams. And the one thing that I love about Arkansas was that spring game. Forget the practices, forget the players, forget the coaches that were added, just the visualization of that football game. I just fell in love. I fell in love with Green. There's something about this kid. He's a freak athlete. He is just an absolute unit. And if they could keep him healthy, which I think will be key here, because let's don't forget the last quarterback, KJ Jefferson, ran for his life for like 2 years. Right. So if they could keep him upright, keep him healthy, and not force him to run every single time, yeah, I could easily be sold on over with 5. I mean, there's probably a couple of games in there you're definitely expecting them to lose. That watch out, fourth quarter, we may have us a ball game.
Right, in games I'm thinking, I hate to tell you, but Tennessee, I mean, that's what I'm eyeing. LSU, again, I'm not sold on LSU. I know you are, so you're probably totally against me here on those two. But Ole Miss, under Kiffin, we've not won in Fayetteville. Last I checked, Texas came to town, whooped their ass. You know what I mean? So, again, we're looking at this May 20th. I get it. You're underdog in all these games.
Right.
But if you beat Oklahoma State, you change the narrative. If you somehow beat maybe, let's say, an A&M, which, again, I think A&M's going to be very good this year. But first-year coach, a lot of, there's many teams, Shane, we thought were going to be good. Turned out to be not very good in this conference. So, again, there's narratives that can change. We'll have to see how good Arkansas comes right out there. I mean, that Oklahoma State game is going to tell us a lot. If you lose that game, we're throwing all this in the fire. You know what I mean? Like that feels like a must-win to me.
I'm going to tease it. One of the highlights tomorrow will feature Oklahoma State. And I saw that nasty mullet running up and down the sideline. Aren't you glad you don't have to watch that team anymore? But if you're an Arkansas fan, I think that's the game you got to have circled. This is a launch pad to the season. Everybody is either going to pile on Sam or they're going to get behind him. And I think a big win week 2 is a program that could easily be loved by the outsiders that aren't Arkansas fans.
All right, you ready for my second team, Shane?
Yeah.
Most underrated here. They're getting no love this offseason.
Tennessee Vols.
We're gonna fire the coach, yada, yada, yada. South Carolina, brother. Again, Lenore Sellers, from what I'm going to talk about him when we get to breakout quarterbacks too, Shay. But again, we've just seen so little of him. It's hard to say, that he's going to be some dominating force or anything like that. But you got to remember, this is a program that brought in 25 plus transfers to shore up the roster. South Carolina, we got to give him credit, Shay. I don't know how in the hell they do it every year, but they get these guys. Who in the hell are they? Division II, Division III, FCS. They plug them in. They become stars of college football, and then Ole Miss steals them. Mm-hmm. That's what we do down at Columbia. So we got us another batch of incoming transfers here. They're going to be impact players for a defense, number 2 in the SEC in returning production. That, we got some work to do, but we've got some standouts in the secondary. We got a little bit more depth on the defensive line. If we could get that defense going a little bit, I think South Carolina, and that's what Beamer ball is all about, Shane, is upsets, pulling them early. And again, I just hate LSU so bad, Shane, because everywhere I'm seeing LSU on all these schedules, and everybody's penciling LSU as an automatic loss for Arkansas, for South Carolina. I'm not going there. I'm not going there just yet. And again, we've talked about the Kentucky game, so I don't want to necessarily rehash all that. But that Kentucky game, LSU at home, that's going to tell us a hell of a lot. I mean, I'm not sitting here predicting it, Shane, but it would not stun me if we start 4-0 here. It may be 2 upsets, but still 4-0. And then I'm looking at Vanderbilt, 5, Wofford, 6, Clemson. Come on, get the hell out of here, Clemson, 7. I mean, this is potentially a 7 to 8 win team, and that's not far off from what we've been doing at South Carolina. Although last year we fell short of expectations, but if I would have told you, after 2 years ago that South Carolina's going to win 7, 8 games in 2024, I think 99% of people would have bought that, but they're probably just not buying it based on what happened late last year.
Yeah, well, I think, too, the big part here is just your expectations. They're not as high as they have been. And I think that sets the bar. That bar set at 5.5 kind of surprises me, because if you ask non-South Carolina fans about this schedule, they'll be like, I can maybe find 4 wins, but I can't see 5, definitely not 6. So that tells you Vegas thinks that this team's better than most people are saying right now. Now, what did they suck at last year? Offensive line. What did they suck at last year? Running. And I feel like the addition of Rocket Sanders, the improvement in the trenches, I think South Carolina is another one of those teams that are going to be finally two-dimensional and take a little bit of pressure off Goggles back there. But this is a guy that if the pressure comes in, if that pocket collapses, this is a Spencer, man. This is a guy that could tuck it and get 7-8 yards, move the chains with his legs. So, I do think that this is maybe I don't want to say underrated, but I guess that's kind of where you're going, especially on the offensive side. I don't think enough people are talking about the weapons that South Carolina has returning.
Right. And one thing I just absolutely love, Shane, like when we have Steven on once a week and he starts talking about Lenore Sellers, just the comments light up. Goggles. I mean, you are ace at making up nicknames for these guys. You know,
man, I tell you, we should put a shirt out there in Gamecock colors with goggles on it. Just a pair of goggles.
All right, now we're really getting heated up. And again, I don't know how bold this one necessarily is going to be, Shane, but I think they're being disrespected, and they love the fact that you are disrespected them, Shane.
What?
I'm talking about them Texas A&M Aggies. I think this is underrated city right here. No one's expecting much of them. I think even diehard Aggies are not sitting here expecting this team to, let's say, go to the college football playoff. And I'm not sitting here predicting that they will, but I'm saying we're talking number 2 in the SEC returning production on the offensive side of the football. We're going to get into Connor Weigman here in a minute when we're discussing breakout quarterbacks. I love what they're another one that hit the portal pretty hard. Now, they lost a lot via the portal, but they added that basically. I don't know how much of a net gain or net negative it is, because a lot of the guys they lost, a couple of them were key players, but they've added some key players as well via the transfer portal. So I think it's, quite frankly, I think it's close to a wash there, what they lost and what they gained. Mike Elko, all we need is a damn adult down there, a football coach that knows what the hell he's doing. And Jimbo clearly didn't know. And I think now that we have that, again, Notre Dame will be key. Florida will be key. Mm-hmm. But if they beat Notre Dame, Shane, I'll go out here and predict it. And not that I have any respect for Notre Dame. But if they beat Notre Dame, college game day, season opener.
You'll get a tattoo.
They're going, no. Not that. I'm not that bold on this side yet. What's up with you to always try to get me tattoos here?
I don't know. Sorry.
But if they beat Notre Dame, college game day, game of the week, because I think it's set up for Notre Dame to, you know how they're going to talk up Notre Dame. It's going to be their damn Super Bowl, all that.
Yeah.
If they could beat Notre Dame in the opener, they're going to Gainesville week 3. They're beating the Florida Gators. How about that?
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I won't make that argument. I do think that A&M will beat a lot of teams this year. I'm just not as high on them as you are. I'm starting to wonder, I know we had Billy a couple of weeks ago in that sit-down interview, and I don't know if that was part of the deal, like you were going to go easy on them Aggies this year or something, but I everybody knows I have always been a fan of Texas A&M. It's just they have not been a fan of my bets, and that's why I'm trying to steer clear. I know a lot of Aggie fans are excited about that. They'll probably have a breakout season, but me, I've just got to see it. I'm at that point with Texas A&M. I've said it year after year. This is a great squad. This is a 10-win team. This is an 11-win team.
Right.
And then they never hit that. Now, Jimbo is gone, thank God, and I hope we take a little credit for that. We've been firing him for 2 years. But I think Mike Elko is the right move. This defense is going to this is a unit that will immediately turn around. And if you've got a good defense, brother, you just need a little life from Connor. You just need a little life on that offensive side of the ball. And I think they've got plenty of weapons to do it.
Now here, Shane, I like being on an island.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not anymore because there's so much hype. I'm seeing more and more people jump on a bandwagon. But just remember who said it first, Shane. My number, now we're really starting to heat up. I think this is criminally underrated team, and I think they're going to shock the country, Shane.
Vanderbilt.
Florida Gators is great to be Oh, Florida Gator shade. This is a team. Again, we got more talk about the quarterbacks coming up, but I just think with everybody just gets transfixed by this schedule, and I get it. I mean, it's a damn murderer's row, even though it sets up beautifully, I think. For Florida Gators, they started getting hot at the right time on the offensive side of the football. Now, they were a damn travesty on the defensive side of the ball. We have got to get that cleared up. If we don't get it cleared up, Billy Napier ain't surviving. That's just matter of fact, and it's too bad that his defensive coordinator is like 12 years old, and this is his first job as a SEC defensive coordinator, because if they don't get it done on this side of the ball, they're done for. But I think they will. They're a more veteran team. They're more experienced. I love Graham Mertz. After I buried him all season, I'm all the hype. I'm trying to drive the Mertz bandwagon here, Shane. I think the Florida Gators, one of the most underrated teams, not only in the SEC, but the entire country, because people can't. All they do is they see that schedule and say, my God, this is the toughest schedule in SEC history. There's no way they can survive this. And I'm not saying they're going to go 11-1 or something crazy, but I think they can legitimately win 8 games next season.
Mike. This may be dumber than paying $140 to get out of a gym membership. You could come up with something else, like you moved, you got sent off. There's no, it seems like you could put my zip code. That gym is definitely not making it to this side of Tennessee. So, oh, brother, I will tell you, it just feels kind of natural to pile on to the Florida Gators, and because everybody's doing it, everybody's talking about it. It's fun. Everybody likes to see one team struggle that's had, success in the last 20 years. It's just, I get it. But there is always that part of you that's like, well, shit, what if they are good? What if we didn't keep them down long enough? I always felt like the Florida Gators were just one of those that, like, once they got up, like a diesel engine, once it starts running, you can't stop it. You know what I'm saying? I'm afraid that's like where we're at. And nobody outside of Florida is ready for that. But I'm telling you, if the Gators do take this would be a monumental step forward that you're talking about. Brother, I mean, Billy may stay down there for 10, 15 more years.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What if he turned it around, Shane? And then he went and took like another job.
Just flipping off. Yeah. You didn't want me here. That's the problem, man. It's like, how personal are you taking it? Billy's so good about coach speak and not showing, his true feelings and stuff like that, But
right.
He's hearing it. He's not just hearing it from, my fat ass. He's hearing it from everybody down there. I've heard beat writers down there in Florida kind of giving him a hard time, But if they do take that step, that's one thing about this locker room is they're so galvanized together that if you didn't like me when I was bad, don't like me when we're good. I just feel like that's the mentality they should have. And you may be onto something. I do like the start of the season. I think that's pivotal. Obviously, the schedule does get rough at the end, but it gets a lot easier if you start out 5-0, 6-0.
Right. All right. How about this one, Shane? Man, the more I find out about this team, the more I'm falling in love. Oklahoma here. I'm telling you, everybody's transfixed. It's going to be Texas taking over the SEC. And I'm not saying Oklahoma's going to take it over by any means, but I just think they're being dismissed. I think they're being discredited. And I think it's a damn shame, because, again, we had a team that broke out in a huge way last season. I think we have upgraded significantly to defensive coordinator position, bringing back a ton of talent on that side of the ball, number one in the SEC, and returning production on the defensive side of the football. Whew, buddy. And that's another thing. The SEC used to be that, this is what championship. This is defense. Ain't nobody playing the defense we're playing. Well, defense has kind of gone out in the SEC, Shane. It's Georgia. Even Bama started to crumble a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. I think Oklahoma's going to come in here and be one of the tougher defenses in the league to go with a rising quarterback with a ton of weapons around him. I think Oklahoma is going to really open some eyes this fall in the SEC.
Yeah, no, and I think they got the right quarterback. There's a reason he's getting paid, and I'm watching a few highlights. I'm trying not to tease it up, but I got another one coming out tomorrow, and again, I got to see this quarterback just kind of grow last season. So I'm pumped up about Oklahoma. I'm a little leery, obviously with them big uglies up front, but it seems like every time I get on the computer or I get on my phone, they land them another transfer, So
right.
They are very, very active. They're filling up in the right spots. And why do you think so many people are hard on them right now?
Wait, before we get to that, Shane, Cousin Rick just gave us a $50 donation.
Come on. Thank you, cuz.
Thanks, cuz.
Cousin Rick says Connor Weigman lights up the SEC while Tommy Moffitt's strong defense smothers them opponents. I got a lot to say about Connor Weigman here for Cousin Rick when we get to the breakout quarterback, so stay tuned for that. But why are they getting disrespected, Shane?
Yeah, why? Why are they so hard on them?
Because they're Broklahoma? No, I'm just kidding. But we do have shirts for sale here if you missed it. But I get why are they getting, I don't know, Shane. I think because, the same things you could say about, I was going to go Big 12, weak league. I think, what I really think it is, Shane, stems from the Lincoln Riley era where, they'd make the playoff and then their defense would just get annihilated.
Yeah.
And, that is, so you look at the Sooners, you think they're soft. Now they play this exciting brand of offense. That gets labeled as soft. I just think that people think the Sooners are soft when I'm sitting here telling you, I think they're going to have maybe a top 4 is kind of where I'm pegging it. Top 4 defense in the entire SEC. I like the quarterback. I like the weapons. Obviously, we know offensive line, but they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the country too. So you can't overcome offensive line with just some elite coach. You got to have the players. They've added guys via the transfer portal. I think it's going to be a work in progress, but thankfully they get 3 essentially cupcakes before they get into the SEC play to kind of get that ironed out if they can. Shane, this is a playoff team. If they have a solid offensive line, Oklahoma's going to the college football playoff.
Mike, all in. Don't hold back now.
And then by number one, so there's one more, Shane. Number 1. Can you guess who it is? Number 1.
Kentucky Wildcats.
Go Kentucky! My number 1 most underrated team in the SEC, Shane, is them Kentucky Wildcats, led by Mark C. Coach Stoops here. But he's had such a long time, Shane, to get in here, build up his roster, and we are excited as hell for Brock Vandagriff and his damn clip phone to get into this conference. Of course, he's been in the conference. But as a starting quarterback, see what he can do, tear it up. Again, week 2 will define. I mean, I hate to, put so much pressure on one game, Shane, but it's been selected by ABC, I believe the 3:30 game, South Carolina at Kentucky for a reason. This is a rivalry, or at least it's developed into one. It's a crucial, critical game for both programs. Brock's got to show up. It may be Brock versus your goggles down there. You know what I mean? Like whoever puts on a display here, if you can get a win there, it's going to set you up potentially for a really nice season. You lose, and we got some explaining to do down there. But I think Kentucky's being dismissed.
Yep.
They're being overlooked, and they're a team that they'll probably quietly win 8-9 football games, and we're going to be saying, should Kentucky make the college football playoff, or 9-3? I think those conversations could happen if Brock Vandagriff lives up to the hype.
That's it. It's got to be about Brock because he's got the dudes. They've got the dudes around him. I think this is you talk about underrated. I think one of the most underrated wide receiver rooms in the country. They're dynamic. They're not all the same. They just are special. And I think a good quarterback can really expose that. And I think that's what Brock does this season. I love their schedule. That they've got a lot of tough games on the road, but if you look at the home schedule, even if they lose to Georgia, they still win 7 games. So there's your over right there. So if they steal an Ole Miss or Tennessee or Florida Gators or Lord hell, even Texas, you never know. It's all about momentum and being at the right place at the right time. So yeah, Kentucky, everybody's sleeping on them and they shouldn't be.
Right. All right, Shade. So those are my underrated. Again, Arkansas, South Carolina, A&M, Florida, Oklahoma, Kentucky. Is there any team that you think I may have missed? Because I feel like the vast majority of the teams they're rated about where they should be. Anyone that you would add to that list?
Maybe Mississippi State. I think that's a team that is going to catch a few programs off guard just because of their offensive loan. I mean, 4.5 is ridiculous. This isn't Vanderbilt. This is a team that's still got a lot of talent left behind. They got a tough schedule, but I don't know. I think they are a classic trap team this year, and they're going to catch some dudes off guard. So that one right there is probably one. Maybe Auburn. Is there any reason you left Auburn? Because you've kind of been high on them last couple of seasons. You're kind of drifting back. Is 7.5 just too high for you? Do you just hate Hugh Freeze or what? I'm just trying to figure it out.
I think they're overrated, Shane. That's why they didn't make my list. If we were doing the most overrated, I'd probably put Auburn up there because they nearly beat Georgia and nearly beat Alabama. We got to kiss the rings. We ain't playing horseshoes and hand grenades out here. You know what?
Yeah, I know. I just wanted you to say it. I just teed it up because I wanted to hear it.
All right. Breakout quarterback, Shane.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about next year. And, buddy.
Do you feel like this goes hand in hand a little bit with maybe some of your sleepers, if you will?
Possibly.
Yeah.
But I was going to, again, maybe this isn't fair, so I was going to throw it out there. You let me know what you think, Shane. I think to really be a breakout candidate, and I'm talking, I'm not talking like last year, Graham Mertz surprised the hell out of us.
Yeah.
Was that a breakout? I don't think so. I think a breakout was Jane Daniels.
Oh.
I think 2 years ago, Hendon Hooker was a break. You know what I mean? Basically, could be one of the best players in the entire country, if that makes sense.
All right.
So I have written down Lenora Sellers, South Carolina, but again, I'm telling you, going in first year, South Carolina, I did consider him, but I think that's like way too much pressure.
Yeah.
Way too much expectations for him. So I think 2 years from now, he's the guy we've got circled for this. Same thing, Brock Vandagriff. First year starting, coming over, new team, new offense, new offensive coordinator, just a lot of transition there. In 2 years, could Brock Vandagriff, I'd buy it, Shane, if he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC in 2 years. Next year, I think that's a leap. I honestly do. And same thing, I'm putting in Taylon Green, Arkansas. I hope he comes in. I hope he excels. But is he going to be the Heisman candidate? I mean, that's crazy talk, right? So now in 2 years, you could talk me into that, right? So I'm leaving those guys off the list, if that makes sense. All right, is that fair?
That's fair. It's just tough for me to wrap my hand around Brock in 2 years. He already looks 38, so. I think we went to school together. I don't know.
Right. And then these other two guys, again, I think they're getting so much hype, Shane, that, I mean, I don't know if they can live up to it. I mean, they could have really good years.
Yeah.
And I think some people would be like, 5-star? I don't know. So Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma, I'm putting him firmly into the, close, but I'm trying to temper the expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
I threw for 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks in the bowl game against a really good Arizona team. And then Nico. But, I look at both of them about the same way, Shane. Even the guys I just referenced, Jane Daniels, Hendon Hooker, these are the guys I'm trying to think of. Anthony Richardson a couple years ago. These quarterbacks generally do not, even Joe Burrow, going back even more years, they don't come in and they're not, the elite of the elite year one. It's usually year two. And is it fair to say Nico's going to score 40 touchdowns this year? I mean, We all hope he does on Rocky Top, but how realistic is that? I don't know. Same thing with Jackson Arnold. So could they be breakout players? And they will. I mean, just by sheer production and being in the lineup, they're going to be breakout. Mm-hmm. But I'm not considering those two either for that reason. Like I expect them both to be good, but I don't expect either one of them realistically to win the Heisman or anything like that this fall. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so again, they're borderline. If this is 2 years from now, they're the top of the list. So now we get into the three key guys, Shane, that I think are the breakout quarterback. And I'm doing this in order, right?
Yeah.
Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. Again, I didn't realize this, Shane. He's had 219 passing attempts in his. I mean, you look at him and say, well, he's not really started a ton. He started the bowl game, come back, win against Wisconsin. It was very impressive. But 1,720 passing yards, 11 passing touchdowns, 7 picks. Against Georgia in the SEC championship, 294 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. That was 2 years ago. So, I mean, I think he's ready. I think he's primed to be a huge candidate, breakout, and could be, if LSU does what you think they're going to do, brother.
Yeah.
It's going to be Garrett Nussmeier leading the way here. Yeah,
absolutely. That's the way you're going to look at it, especially a Heisman, is which team is potentially making a playoff run. Right. I think LSU's going to be in that mix. They got plenty of weapons around them. They just kind of reload on that side. And if you think of quarterbacks and Heisman, LSU's kind of the one that pops up in your mind most of the time. So I think just being where he's at is pivotal as well. Coach Kelly is going to put him in the right spot. He's not going to put him in the offense is going to look totally different next year.
Ooh, hey, Coach Reed, one of our favorites, friend of the show. Mizzou is going to win the SEC. St. Louis versus everybody. Oh, buddy. Coach Reed is going to get us some donations just for his comments. I do appreciate that, Coach. But one red flag, though, with Nussmeier.
Yeah.
If he could come around. Now, he has a history of turnovers a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's played 18 games, Shane.
Mm-hmm.
18 games. Only 5 of them has he achieved 60% completion percentage or more. 5 out of 18. So that is why I basically have him third on this list. I found that to me is a little bit of an issue. But
you wouldn't say it to his face. You wouldn't tell his dad that, would you?
But how about this? So this is for Cousin Rick. I was planning on doing this already, but Connor Weigman, he's number 2, breakout candidate, Shane. I didn't realize this either. So like Nuss, he's got 11 touchdowns, 7 picks, right?
Yeah.
Weigman, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Oh, wow.
I mean, his numbers are pretty incredible, Shane. Over 1,800 passing yards. And I sum this just against SEC competition, Shane. 775 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So Weigman, he was kind of heating up, Shane. He only really played 3 games last year.
All right.
230 passing yards and 5 touchdowns in the opener. That's when I was saying he's going to win the Heisman, which he might this year. 336, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks against Miami. And then 337 passing yards and 1 touchdown in ULM. He could have had 5, 6 more if they wanted. But I think if that Weigman shows up in this new look offense, Colin Klein, who's an offensive guru, I think Connor Weigman is one of our biggest breakout players in the entire country next season. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, let me flip it back on you. If Connor didn't get hurt last year, would Jimbo still be there?
Thank God he got hurt, Shane. I mean,
he fell on the grenade for everybody. He's the real 12th man.
Oh, that's horrible. No, we don't want anyone to get injured or anything like that. But no, point remains, Shane. I think Jimbo's still there.
Yeah.
If Connor Weigman is, he's in there, and he was lighting it up.
Because I look at a handful of games last year that Texas A&M should have won, and they didn't. And I think if Connor were back there at quarterback, they would. This is a kid that also has that mobility. Obviously, we're worried about the health, but that little mobility factor really helps in that Heisman race, and just being able to do something with your legs. And Connor has that. You forget how athletic this guy is.
Right. And I mean, Ken says, too bad Weigman doesn't have Jimbo to blame anymore. But again, 16-2 touchdown to interception ratio with Jimbo. I mean, there ain't no excuses here. I mean, we're not trying to make excuses. We're saying he was dynamic in a
not getting sucked in, Mike.
Right,
Nope.
and I forgot. Don't you tell All right, and then here's the real breakout, Shane. I don't know if you're ready for this. Can you guess who it is? I bet you can guess.
Oh, my boy Brady.
No. I feel like he's already broke out. Graham Mertz, brother.
Oh, God.
I'm all aboard here, Shane.
Jeez Louise.
Since October of last season, Shane, Florida's schedule, it was all SEC. This is no cupcakes, anything like that. Since October of last season, 70% completed his passes, 1,681 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception for Graham Mertz. Last season, once he started to figure it out in Billy Napier's system, since October, that was 6 games, all SEC competition. This ain't, again, I think Graham Mertz, year 2, remember, this is paramount, year 2 in the system, they got more help around him, he's more familiar, and Shane, they're adding guys like Wisconsin transfer Chamiri Dike. He was at Wisconsin with Mertz before, so they already have that rapport. They just added an Arizona State receiver, Elijah Badger, who On 3 had as the top receiver in the portal at the time, to go around with a very, I would say, largely inexperienced receiving corps, but they got some talent down there in Gainesville. I think Graham Mertz is our breakout candidate. And once these Florida Gators go 9-3, Shane, and make the college football playoff, people are going to give Graham Mertz some Heisman love. You better believe it.
Is Billy Napier in the room with you now? Blink twice if you're unsafe, Mike. Oh man, you are just all in, man. We turned this to the Swamp Cast, didn't we? I get it, man. I do think that people are sleeping on Florida.
How about this, Shane? Real quick, shout out cousin Michael Riley here. Mertz, Mike, you're going to get a Billy tattoo. No, but if Mertz wins the Heisman,
okay,
will you get a tattoo?
Me?
Yes, that's the bet. If you'll take it.
Oh, well, see, that's how you flip it on me. What if you the one?
Because you're the one. You're always trying to get the tattoo bets going. So
if
Mertz wins the Heisman,
I'll put his face. I'll get it.
No, you got to get the Gator tattoo. Logo.
No. I may not get into heaven with that one, Mike. I'll get Mertz's number or something like that. Okay. There. Yeah, somewhere. But it ain't happening. I don't even want to. I feel dirty just talking about it, Mike.
I'm just telling you, Shane. I think he's a breakout candidate, star,
a Heisman candidate. Do you know what it takes to? I mean, that's why I asked about Brady, because even though Brady had a breakout season last year,
right?
I don't think we've seen the ceiling of what can happen in that offense coming. I mean, full off season with that wide receiver room that just got better. Mm-hmm. I think this is a kid that will be on the short list for a Heisman race, because at the end of the year he'll probably be toward the top in touchdowns, toward the top in yards per game,
right,
and rushing. I mean, the guy has it all. So this would be my kind of breakout right here.
Now, I've said it before, Shane, and I'm sticking with it for now. I think it's Georgia, and I think it's Mizzou in the SEC championship. And if that comes to fruition, I think you might be onto something. I think if Mizzou wins that game, and they'd probably be a heavy underdog, because it's in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But if Mizzou wins that game, I think Brady Cook will win the Heisman. How about that? Don't you think he'd win a lot of votes that day?
I would. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we got to that point, there's no doubt in my mind. If Mizzou does 90% of what I think they can do, he'll be on that list. Luther will be there. There'll be tons of weapons. But you mentioned Georgia, and you mentioned and let's talk about Alabama real quick. You know, Jalen had kind of a breakout toward the tail end of the season.
Right.
Do you think that there's a shot that maybe, like, he just becomes the Jaden Daniels, like he is the show You know what I'm saying? Like the human highlight reel. I think if you were to pick one player that's a quarterback in the SEC that has the capability of doing it, it could be Jalen.
Right, and then that could start early. Shane, I'll throw up her schedule here. If they beat Georgia, it's got to that's real quick. That's where we're at, Shane, in college football. It's like, well, if you can beat Georgia, then you can win the Heisman. You could do this. I mean, but ain't nobody beating Georgia. But yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point because that would be like a Heisman-esque statement. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, Shane. I mean, at Tennessee, Mizzou, at LSU, at Oklahoma. I mean, if they run that gauntlet, or he just looks incredible during that gauntlet, don't necessarily have to run the gauntlet. We just saw LSU lose 3 games. They still gave the trophy to Jane Daniels, which I think he deserved. But I don't know, Shane. I've heard that comparison before. Is he the next Jane Daniels? I don't buy it because, again, Jane Daniels, year 2 in that system, surrounded by elite receivers, an offensive coordinator that he was in year 2 with. I think Milroe will be very good this year. But if he comes back in 25, I think he'd be a candidate for this list in 25 to be a huge breakout. I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for him to duplicate what he did last year. I really do.
Yeah. I just think, again, and my definition of Heisman is a guy that, if removed, the team would just suffer immensely. And I think taking Jalen away from Bama is not the same as taking Nussmeier away from LSU. I think LSU will still win games, 10 games probably,
right.
9 games, read up there. But I think Bama, on the other hand, could really struggle if it's not for Milroe, So I don't know. I'm just kind of torn here. I hate to say breakout because the kid's already broke out. He was already on the short list for the Heisman last year, and maybe that's why you're not putting Beck in there. These are guys that were kind of already floating toward the top. But how do you to take the top off? I think Milroe has a better opportunity to do that.
Right, and to your point, Shane, I think Carson Beck is the current betting favorite to win the Heisman.
Yeah, of course.
So I can't rightfully call him a breakout. He's the favorite to win the award. You know what I mean?
Right. Is there another kid on Georgia's team that maybe you would say breakout? Maybe not quarterback?
I mean, I guess you'd go ETN, right? Who, he wasn't technically even starting down at Florida. Well, how will that motivate him being... Now, again, I think Florida's going to be really good. We disagree with that. Seemingly everybody disagrees with me with that. But, how we'll be motivated, it's got to be a lot better, Shane, to not lose to Utah in humiliating fashion, lose to this team, lose to that team, whereas at Georgia, they're going to be chasing a national championship all season long. What more does that bring out of a competitor like an ETN? I think he is firmly a candidate for that.
Do you think, and I'm putting you on the spot here, do you think that there is maybe one player in the SEC on the defense side of the ball that may have a breakout? And I know they probably won't win because they never do, since Charles Woodson shouldn't have. But anyway, is there a guy in the SEC right now that maybe has the ability to be on this Heisman race run?
I'll give one near and dear to your heart, Shane. How about James Pearce, Tennessee, pass rusher? Again, it's very difficult for those guys to rack up kind of recognition for an award like a Heisman, but wouldn't it be classic Tennessee? You got Heupel, you got this $1 million quarterback, everyone's focused on that, and here they have the next Reggie White that is just unblockable. James Pearce is certainly getting some hype, but not to the level of Nico.
Right.
And certainly not that James Pearce is, the best player in Tennessee history or anything, but it's kind of out of whack how one guy is getting all this hype compared to the other, while the one that's not getting it is the one that's kind of performed on the field. So if he has been excellent in the SEC. If he can carry that over and be a little bit more consistent all season long, I think you throw James Pearce into that conversation. People are probably tired of hearing about Harold Perkins because he's, he was dynamic as a freshman, and we didn't see that last year. But if they can unlock that in Blake Baker's defense, maybe we throw him into that consideration. I know Oklahoma's got an outstanding linebacker, Stutzman, who could be in the NFL right now. He came back for another year. I would kind of throw him into the consideration. And, Georgia's always got 5 first-round picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So could be any one of those guys, but those are kind of the ones that jump out to me immediately.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't know. I guess it just feels like times are kind of changing. And then I'm not saying defense is going to get that love, but it would not surprise me here within the next 5 to 10 years, somebody just say, hey, defense needs something, or an offensive line. I remember Orlando Pace when he was on the list there for a little bit, and as a big guy, you're like, hell yeah, let's, even though he's that terrible team, but, I just think that, a Heisman should be the best player removed, the team would suffer. And I think all those defensive guys you just mentioned, that fits the mold.
Right. And again, we're not trying to offend the Georgia audience or Alabama or what have you, but I would certainly think, particularly in Athens, hell, I know, Tennessee's going to be an underdog against Georgia. But imagine a world, Shane, where James Pearce gets like 4 sacks and forces 3 fumbles of Carson Beck. That's about the best shot you have at winning that game.
Yeah.
I mean, Nico could score 4 touchdowns. If you just told me Nico's going to score 4 touchdowns, I'd say, well, Carson Beck probably scored 5 or 6, and Georgia won, right? But if you told me that James Pearce was unblockable, I'd say, well, hell, maybe Tennessee's got a shot in a game like that. So maybe that's how you get that hype. And it's going to take performances like that in games where you're an underdog. Maybe Oklahoma. I could imagine a very high-scoring affair, Oklahoma hosting Tennessee, but maybe a big defensive stop, maybe a pick 6 we've seen James Pearce pick 6 in a bowl game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it takes dynamic players like that to win you coin flip type games, if that makes sense.
Boy, you're good, Mike. You redeemed yourself. All that Florida talk, now you're closing it out. You're good, man. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Now I got one more thing here, Shane, that I teased. Most underrated hire that I've not heard anyone talk about this really since it happened, Shane. And I'll give you a clue. And I don't think in a million years you'd guess this. It's not a head coach, and it's not a coordinator. The most underrated hire in the SEC this offseason. You have any idea where I'm going with this?
Strength and conditioning?
No, but that's a good guess.
Not a coordinator. I mean, not an offensive coordinator and not a head coach, right?
Right.
LSU's defensive line coach.
Oh, that's a really good. That's another guess. But Shay, we have a bad habit as fans.
Yeah.
If a guy sucks as a head coach, he can't be a coordinator. If a guy sucks as a coordinator, he can't be a position coach. It's different duties for different people. Some people excel at one thing and they struggle at something else. And this guy's classic here. No one's talking about it, Shane.
All right.
Zach Arnett, defensive analyst, not even a position coach at Ole Miss. And I'll tell you why. I know it. Mississippi State, awful last year. And he was, largely responsible for that. And he had to go. He can't cut it as a head coach in this league. But he was a hell of a defensive coordinator. You cannot take that away from him. The Egg Bowl that Mike Leach won, the only one he won, was won because of Zach Arnett's defense, not Mike Leach's offense. People don't forget that. But critical, Shane. Hired at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I got some stats for you here, brother. Ole Miss last year, points per game, 35 points per game is what they averaged. 6.46 yards per play they averaged. Passer rating of 162 was what they averaged. And that third down conversions, 37% conversion. That's Ole Miss on the season. Mm-hmm. But against State, and I know Zach Arnett was fired by then, but they were still running his defense, his coaches, his players. Again, they averaged 35, Shane. They scored 17. They averaged 6.4 yards per play. They got 4 per play against State. 162 passer rating, 97 passer rating against State, and only 25% third down convert. Those are all down from what they were statistically on the season. And the same thing 2 years ago, Shane, averaged 33.5 points per game. Ole Miss did. Only scored 22 against State. Yards per play, 6.44 averaged. 4.3 they gained in the Egg Bowl. Passer rating actually was slightly up, but third down conversions, 47% was the average. 23 is what they had in the Egg Bowl. And the point being, Shane, is Zach Arnett is clued in to what Lane Kiffin is doing.
Yeah.
And what better way than to correct those issues for Lane Kiffin and company than to have that man inside their building to teach them, here's what I saw, here's how I countered it, and you cannot handle what I did here. If you do this, I do that, on and on and on. And Pete Golding, I think we can all agree, elite recruiter. Down in Tuscaloosa, they tell you an awful defensive coordinator. I wouldn't go that far. But, again, it's not like Ole Miss had some huge defensive renaissance last year in his first year. I think they'll be much better this year, but they still got room to improve. I think Zach Arnett's a better defensive coordinator than Pete Golding. I really do. Now, Pete Golding's a significantly better recruiter than Zach Arnett. But essentially, you're getting the best of both worlds here. You're getting someone that is essentially a better defensive coordinator on staff and someone that has figured out Lane Kiffin, either his system or his play calls or what have you, whatever the hell he's figured out. He's given that information to Lane Kiffin now on a weekly basis. I think Zach Arnett hire will prove to be a stroke of genius for old Lane Kiffin, and I think it's going to pay huge dividends for Ole Miss this season. What thoughts on that?
That's a lot of numbers to take in, Mike, and I'm with you too, because I feel like it's similar to the Muschamp hire in Georgia, and you see Saban did this. He used to get Charlie. Is it Charlie Strong? I think he
got everybody that got fired. Butch Jones, Sarkisian, Kiffin.
If he could take something from that to make his team better, then it's a pivotal hire. So I do think Arnett. I think his lane is being a defensive coordinator, and I think he'll land a spot sooner than later, but he's in the room, and who better to ask than a guy that was at one point revered as one of the best in the country. So, yeah, I do think it's a hell of a hire.
And, best case scenario, you're Ole Miss, you have a historically great year. Maybe Pete Golding gets hired to be a head coach at UTSA or wherever the hell. Then you got Zach Arnett. You just promote him to defensive coordinator. Again, it's that's a little bit too far down the road, but you have that option now to where you don't have to be out searching for your next defensive coordinator because he's probably in the building there, and he's probably got some bad blood for the state in rival there. You know what?
Oh, it's going to mean a little bit more when that game comes in, I'm sure.
All right, buddy. Well, hey, that's all I got on this episode of the show. You got anything else before we hop off the line?
No. What was the name of that gym I need to avoid again?
True Fit in Donaldson.
Damn, they took a hit today. And Lowe's guy, if you're listening, I'm about to go start a fire I'm going to do it the exact opposite. I'm getting some gasoline. I'm going to do it like the old school days.
All right, brother. Well, hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We got a really fun show tomorrow with Stephen Lassen. I think people are going to love it. And then we got some guests coming up this week too. So trying to get that all worked out, but some good stuff here. And hey, the show rolls on because the off season is sadly, we're still in the midst of it here, Shay. But we're trying to keep everybody entertained before the video game really comes out. You know what?
Mike, 100 days away, actually 101 technically, from SEC football. And you'll be surprised how quick this countdown will go. So you got one that you want to be featured. So if you're looking at like 78-yard touchdown or number 78 or something like that, be sure to shoot them over, man. I'm always open for ideas. So if you've got one that you'd like featured on the countdown, be sure to let me know.
Shane is open for business.
Yeah, exactly. We tried to get an ad for this, like, Subway or some fat loss thing, but no bites on it. So I guess we're gonna roll with Cousin Shane Countdown. So that's gonna trigger off tomorrow. So be sure to check it out early. I'm gonna get out there and get this thing over with.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you as always. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you guys. Go Vols.